Dr. Devon Hoover was a wildly successful neurosurgeon in Detroit. His patients raved about him as a doctor and as a man. Dr. Hoover lived alone in this sprawling mansion in the Boston Edison district. Inside the mansion, 13,000 square feet of classic decor and art. Dr. Hoover would often open up his home for fundraisers and social events. In all, the doctor was living his best life and helping others along the way. But on April 23, 2023, when Dr. Hoover did not show up at a family function, police were called to do a welfare check. And when they arrived at the mansion, no one answered the door. So police went inside. That's where they found Dr. Hoover's lifeless body, the victim of a violent death. Who would want to murder a man who was loved by so many and helped so many more? Tonight, big news in this murder mystery as prosecutors make an arrest. Who is this accused killer and what is his connection to the doctor? We'll take a look at the evidence as we investigate the murder at the mansion.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. And we've heard this phrase before in different stories and in different cases that we've covered through the years here on Court TV. Murder in the mansion, right? So you hear that and you think, oh my goodness, there's all these people living in this mansion and there's some drama within the house, and you try to figure out, you know, who was stabbing who in the back, etc. That's not this case. That is not this case at all. There was only one man living in that mansion, an amazing doctor named Dr. Devon Hoover, a neurosurgeon who helped people who were in pain. His patients raved about the work that he did and how he literally turned around their lives. You know, you have that intricate kind of surgery, neck and back types of pain, and there's nothing you can do to escape it. And this doctor, with the hands literally of a surgeon, was able to help all these folks. And he was loved by neighbors as well. You know, you talk to people in that neighborhood. He took this large home and put some love into it and helped restore it. And it was a magnificent home. But he didn't keep it just to himself. He opened it up to the public and had functions and fundraisers and other events and shared that home with friends and family and coworkers, etc. And that's where he was murdered, inside that mansion. Now, you think, why would someone want to take from this earth an amazing man like Dr. Hoover, who is helping people, like really helping people? Well, there's never a good reason for a murder. There never is. But as you dive into this story and peel back the layers, you're trying to figure out what was going on in his life. And that's something we're going to talk about this hour on this program. And when we first started covering this story, it was a murder mystery. But no longer, according to the prosecutor, the case has been solved. And they've made an arrest. They have charges. And, you know, for the family of the doctor and for the friends and everyone else, this was kind of a black cloud that was hanging over all of them. Like, who would do this? Why would they do it? And is someone going to be held responsible? Well, prosecutors believe that's going to happen now. Here's the rest of the story.
And on April the 22nd of 2023, last year, the Detroit Police Department received a civilian parking complaint, and officers were dispatched to the area of 9901 Coyle Street in the city of Detroit. Officers arrived and observed a white Range Rover blocking the driveway. They investigated further and noticed what appeared to be blood on the interior of the vehicle that was blocking the driveway. They secured the Range Rover, they tagged it as evidence, and towed it to the Detroit Police Department tow yard. The registered owner of that white Range Rover was discovered to be Dr. Devon Hoover of 150 West Boston Boulevard in Detroit. Detroit police officers went to that address of 150 West Boston Boulevard that same evening and noted that the driveway gate leading to and from the rear of the house to be wide open. They were unable to contact anyone at that time at the residence, both knocking on the front and back doors of the house. The next day, on April the 23rd, 2023, Detroit Police Department received a 911 call from Dr. Hoover's family requesting a well-being check of his home, as they had been unable to reach him after he failed to come and see his dying mother in the state of Indiana. The Detroit Police Department went to 150 West Boston Boulevard and noticed that the driveway gate leading to the rear of the house was wide open. Further investigation revealed the presence of what appeared to be blood on the rear exterior side of the back entrance door of the home. A decision was made to force entry into the premises, and during that protective sweep of the home, Dr. Devon Hoover was found deceased in the third floor attic crawl space. He was face down. He was only wearing socks. He was wrapped in a blood-soaked carpet. He appeared to have been shot in the head. An autopsy was conducted, and the autopsy concluded that Dr. Hoover was indeed shot twice in the head, and it was the opinion of the Assistant Wayne County Medical Examiner that the death was caused indeed by these 2 gunshot wounds, and the manner of death was homicide. Subsequent investigation revealed that the victim's cell phone, his wallet, his money, his financial transaction devices, credit cards, and designer watches were missing from the home. The investigation revealed that almost immediately following his murder, multiple fraudulent financial transactions were made from Dr. Hoover's various bank accounts. These transactions spawned for several days after that discovery. An analysis of the victims of Dr. Hoover's cell phone records revealed that Dr. Hoover had approximately 4,000 communications with a number attributed to a Desmond Burks, who resided at 9924 Sussex Street in the city of Detroit. The text messages established that Desmond Burks and Dr. Hoover were in an intimate relationship with one another, and that on occasion Desmond Burks would charge Dr. Hoover for these sexual services. As a result of all of that, we are charging Desmond Burks today with 1 count of first-degree premeditated murder, count 2, felony murder, count 3, larceny of over $20,000, count 4, using a computer to commit a crime. The maximum imprisonment there is between 10 years or more, but less than 20 years. Count 5, possession of a firearm by a felon. Count 6, felony firearms, second offense, which goes to count 1. Count 7, felony firearms, second offense, which goes to count 2. And count 8, felony firearms, second offense, that goes to count 5.
And that's the Wayne County DA, Kim Worthy, describing some of the circumstances surrounding all of this. And as you listen to it, you wonder, well, what was the motive? What happened here? Well, there was some level of a personal relationship going on there, an exchange of money at certain times for certain activities, but then also took a whole bunch of stuff as well. So what was this really all about? Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us live in studio tonight, criminal defense attorney Meg Strickler. Also with us, criminal defense attorney and Emory University law professor Molly Palmer. And finally, the man behind the glasses, criminal defense attorney Josh Schiffer. Great to see everyone. So was this personal? You think this was personal, or was this just straight up, this man lives in a mansion, I know he has money, and I'm going to take his stuff?
This was definitely personal. That's a big fat duh. And it's because we have text messages that shows they had definitely corresponded with each other often. Now, I'm not fighting you that there's payment done also, so there's some weird things going on here as well. I have a strong suspicion drugs was one of the reasons that this guy took all the Cartier watch and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds as though it wasn't just personal, but I think the word used to describe it was intimate. I think they were in some type of sexual relationship. And I think what happens when you live this seemingly double life, as Dr. Hoover did, you sometimes don't want to know too much about your clandestine lover. You don't need to know all about them, whether they are troubled or mentally ill or a drug addict, as Meg has referenced. And so you end up with the tragedy of epic proportions like this one.
But let's not limit it to just a sexual relationship. There could have been a lot more. Just because we start learning about this relationship because the good doctor is dead with 2 holes in his head that were probably done by the lover, let's not limit ourselves and say it's just sex, because there really was a lot more. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't drugs. I'd be very surprised if a deep dive into the doctor's life doesn't show a lot more there. This is someone who was beyond successful. He didn't do that by himself. There are people that know what was going on that led to this. 4,000 messages? That's a very substantial relationship. That's a lot more than someone just buying sex or just having a drug problem.
So the nature of their relationship, right? It's obvious it's not out in the public. They're not out as a couple. It's not working that way. But he lives in 13,000 square feet. And, you know, he seems so meticulous about the way he restored that home and preserved it and brought in the artwork and everything else. That's on the one hand. And the other part of his life, he's got this other thing that's going on. And I'm wondering why the two could not be together and could not be out in public.
I can answer that easy. It's called compartmentalization. He lives one life, and then he's got a separate life, and they must stay separate. Otherwise, everything will implode. And I don't know what happened that evening this occurred, but maybe that's what was happening. Things were converging and chaos. What happened, shooting somebody and then wrapping up in a rug naked, there's just a lot.
Well, if you're shooting someone, though,
happening.
you bring the gun there. So it seems like that's some level of premeditation, unless you always carry a gun.
Gun may have been there. I have cases where literally the gun was present as a guest came, and that guest then used the firearm. So we've got to be careful before jumping to conclusions. We don't know what the relationship was like. And as for the compartmentalization, there's a history. It's studied. Very successful people who are also addicts oftentimes have a very close relationship with what can be considered people outside their class.
So wait. So you're saying the doctor is the one who could have had some...
He did.
He did.
He definitely did. He had some issues. We don't know what the issues were. We don't know if it was addiction, some sort of sexual issues. We don't know what the issues were. What I'm saying is he compartmentalized. He was a very successful neurosurgeon. That's 100%. But then he also had this underbelly aspects, because why else would you bring that stuff into your world? We know this Desmond guy is not, you know, he's a couple fries short of a Happy Meal, as we've learned. And we know he's got some issues. We can tell he's got felony convictions. Why would somebody on paper bring that into your house?
Right, and up next, we have a competency hearing, right? So his lawyer is saying that we don't even think that this man is competent to understand the proceedings or work with his attorney, or he has some profound issues in terms of functioning right now. But I do think that Dr. Hoover, you know, from what we've heard, he was raised in this kind of conservative Mennonite Amish family. We know what it takes to become a neurosurgeon, not just undergrad and then medical school, but then 7 years of residency. I mean, these are the most serious of doctors. And I think that sometimes, like Josh was saying and what Meg has referenced, you do kind of live this life where you are under such intense pressure and scrutiny, and so you want other things to remain hidden entirely. And that's how he seemed to have functioned.
There's really an anonymity of being such a successful person and then going into a lifestyle or community where they're completely removed. No one at an underground drug, sex is going to know you from the hospital or the country club. And there's freedom in that. I quit drinking in 2008. I didn't drink in high-end places. It was with other people.
Wait. He has friends in low places.
But you'd be surprised how common that is with high-performing individuals.
Yeah, I have friends in low places too.
Okay.
It's where you get the good clients.
I want to read a statement from Dr. Hoover's family, and here's what they had to say. The investigation of our brother's murder has never been far from our minds since April 23rd, 2023. Today, we feel relief for a step towards justice. We feel grateful for the dedicated teamwork and sacrifices of the Detroit Police Department. Most of all, we feel the loss of Devon once again. He was an exceptional man, a doctor, brother, son, uncle, and friend who invested in our lives with unwavering kindness and generosity. Although nothing will ever reverse our loss, we are grateful that someone will be held accountable for Devon's death. We continue to rest in faith that God's goodness will prevail over this tragedy. And you talk about the impact on a family, right? He was probably like the golden child of the family. Oh, yes, my brother, the neurosurgeon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's a big deal.
You know who wins Thanksgiving every year is my son, the neurosurgeon.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's top.
Now, the other tragedy here is how he was discovered and when. And I didn't realize that until today, that he was supposed to go visit his dying mother.
Mm-hmm. And that's what caused the call, the 911 call.
For a wellness check.
Yeah.
But to me, it speaks volumes about him. Like, if he doesn't show up there, then the family's going to say, wait, there's something wrong here.
Horribly wrong.
Because this is the kind of guy. He's a stand-up guy. Yeah. But at the same time, he's got this other life that's going on. Let me ask you this. How big of a role will the doctor's life play at a trial?
Nothing.
Oh, I think it's going to be tremendous.
No, because the extra case that he just got arrested for is what's going to make Desmond Burks just go down, because he has a new case. So I don't think they're going to care about Dr. Hoover and any part of the victimology of Dr. Hoover, because what Desmond Burks has done since.
I mean, I don't think they necessarily need to get into it, but I think it's highly likely that the government, the prosecution, is going to paint this picture of what an upstanding, contributing member of our society here in Detroit. And I think that they do that to, of course, try and, evoke more empathy than maybe they would for a different type of victim, which I don't know if that's fair or just, but that's often what prosecutors do. And I think when you have somebody like this, who was this type of son, who was this type of brother, who was this type of doctor, to do that.
And it's not fair and just that they are going to focus on this case specifically, but there's a benefit PR message from law enforcement and from local government. Hey, people that pay all the taxes, we're after your killers too. We're not just dedicated to this neighborhood. No, we care about you. And that's an important message for a city coming back the way Detroit is.
I'm fascinated to see the body cam and when they did the wellness check, how they got to the attic. Because they were just doing a protective, crawl space, excuse me.
Right.
They were doing a protective sweep. That was pretty thorough. So I have a strong suspicion when they probably saw that blood. They mentioned it, but they probably saw that blood. And was
probably
like,
a trail, right?
Yeah, they probably needed to look. There's probably more information coming on that.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, do you think at the trial, and I always presume there's going to be a trial. There may not be, but I presume there's going to be a trial. It's murder. No reason to give him any sort of a deal. How big of a role will his life play, and will the defense put the doctor on trial?
The defense may put the doctor on trial, especially if there's something salacious and something you can use to distract the intent of the jury or the attention of the jury. But really what it is the state will lean on the fact that this loss was more important than the loss of a regular citizen. Look at who our community has been robbed of. And they will use emotions to amp up a desire for revenge from a jury.
Okay. Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we'll take a look at the evidence in this case, the evidence against the defendant, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the highest profile true crime case in the nation, the Idaho student murders. Does the accused killer's alibi make any sense? We go to the scene and investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan
In every story, in every trial, every case, there's at least two sides to it.
to dive into the latest
Oh my God.
and breaking true crime stories.
This was a very targeted, very personal attack.
Inside
I've never seen that in Discovery. I've been incarcerated 3 years.
and outside of the courtroom.
She's a psychopath.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
This massive investigation was conducted for over a year in conjunction with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners. This investigation spanned 5 states and 3 countries. The law enforcement officers that I referenced, approximately 71 plus officers worked on this case. Again, both local, state, interstate, and federal. There were 87 plus civilian witnesses involved in this case so far. Of course, we had body-worn camera evidence. Over 77 body-worn camera evidence was recovered and analyzed and looked at, and that translates into hundreds of hours of video. Video interviews, there were 44 of them. Again, over 100 hours of that video. and also video surveillance evidence, 24 different locations, over 40 cell phones were examined, and that alone was over 2 terabytes of data. We had over 300 pieces of evidence that was collected. There were 134 search warrants executed.
There is the prosecutor outlining the investigation in this case, and sounds to me like this trial is going to take a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. I'm not sure if you've got all this evidence that you went through. So let's take a listen now, again, to the DA, Kim Worthy, outlining some of the evidence against the defendant in this case.
The day Dr. Hoover was murdered, Dr. Hoover's cell phone traveled from his West Boston Boulevard address to the area of Desmond Burks' address on Sussex. Numerous pieces of corroborating evidence placed Dr. Hoover's cell phone in the same location as Desmond Burks. The evidence includes, but certainly is not limited to, what I'm about to say. Dr. Hoover's cell phone detail records, Google account search warrant returns, Desmond Burks' cellular phone detail records, Range Rover geolocation data, Project Greenlight video, 9901 Coyle Street video, and Golden Fantasy Jewelry Store video surveillance. Other physical evidence was discovered directly linking Dr. Hoover's property to Desmond Burks. On the date of the homicide, Desmond Burks is seen on surveillance camera parking Dr. Hoover's Range Rover near 9901 Coyle Street. He being Mr. Burks, is seen limping away carrying a backpack, and his fingerprint was discovered inside that Range Rover. Search warrants conducted at Dr. Burks' residence led to the recovery of one of Dr. Burks' Cartier watches that I mentioned earlier.
Seems like some compelling evidence against Burks for the murder of Dr. Hoover, but let's bring back in our think tank, see what they have to say. Meg Strickler, Molly Palmer, Josh Schiffer. Okay.
I got lots of questions.
Total misread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got lots of questions.
No, I'm just telling you. What's going to go on is that this doctor was using Mr. Burks to access the darker side of Detroit, and there was some sort of disagreement, and I almost guarantee there's going to be some sort of self-defense and
Self-defense.
because the dynamic and power difference, we've got poor, desperate felon being used by wealthy man for whatever reason.
I got a question, though. I do drug trafficking cases, the highest of all in Mexican cartels with here, not to say Mexico, but that's my cases I've had. None of those kinds of cases, and Molly could probably agree with me here. 40 cell phones?
Yeah. 40 cell phones.
What the heck? What is this? Was this going to blow into an Epstein case? Like, why do we have 40 cell phones that have been analyzed? My head is being scratched.
So is that an opening for the defense, you think?
Well, no, I just think there's more to the story. There's just a lot more going on we don't know about
yet. I think if you're like rattling off some litany of evidence and you don't mention the weapon, you don't have the gun, where's the gun? So if you can, like, curry favor with the jurors about what Josh is talking about, how this doctor was manipulating this guy and not letting him into his life fully and completely as a lover, but just was using him for sex, and like who knows what else is going on out there. You know, I think there's a plausible explanation why maybe he would have some of his belongings or his fingerprints, right? They're obviously hanging out. But if you don't have a weapon, all of a sudden things start to see...
He's got some blood.
And there's no question that he's dead and he died of a gunshot, but you've got to understand, a dead body doesn't make a murder. There's a few other necessary parts of the recipe.
Where's the ring camera, so to speak? This is a beautiful mansion. You know there's security, and she didn't mention any of that.
It's always interesting when you have a press conference, right? And the prosecutor comes out and says everything they've done. Is that like posturing a bit? Is it because they are a little bit nervous? And don't forget, you know, the defendant, he was arrested briefly right when this murder first happened, and then he was released.
Which is telling.
Which is also telling. So there's, as Meg has said, there's something else going on here.
And think about the perspective of Detroit as a taxpayer and citizen. This many resources, 40 cell phones, how many warrants on a murder case? There's a lot of murders in America. It's interesting to see how some of them get a lot more attention.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well done.
So why is he charged now? The DA answered that question. Let's take a listen.
Why now? Because we came to a good place in the investigation to be comfortable to charge this case, that we could do it beyond a reasonable doubt as we have to stand up in court and defend it. So we were not ready, and as y'all know me well enough by now, we take our time. On cases that we can charge quickly, we charge quickly. On cases that we can't, it doesn't matter to me what people say. We're going to take our time to make sure that we get it right.
All right, is that a sign of strength or weakness?
Well, how hard is it to charge, hiding a gun and you're a convicted felon? I mean, they could have done that and then a superseding indictment. That's just baloney to me. I think go back to posturing. What the heck is she even saying?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit, I mean, it does not sound as strong as I think she wants it to sound.
Yes.
It really appears to me that they got in and had some really great evidence, and man, we're just gonna run. Oh, hold on. The more that we receive, the harder this burden may be to carry. And they needed to accuse this before it started getting stale.
Yes.
Before their lack of action becomes a real problem for the state.
Yeah, it took a while. I remember when we first covered the story, and then it sort of just went silent. We knew something was happening, but nothing happened inside of a courtroom anywhere.
Takes a long time to watch all those videos.
Yeah. Well, that's another part of it, right? If you're reviewing all of this evidence and you want to get it
Well,
right.
she only said 24 cameras, which again, I was like, it's Detroit, there are cameras in every daggone corner.
Okay, but can we all agree that the defense is not permitted in this case to go in front of the jury and say, this was a rush to judgment?
Well, we can always say whatever we want.
We can say whatever we want.
Great freedoms
That's why we
of
like
being
our
on
job.
the defense.
Yeah.
Come on, don't rob
I'm not
me.
going to agree with that. No.
So in other words, whatever the prosecutor says will be wrong no matter what.
Of course.
Yes.
That's the best part about this job.
When you're serving on a jury, just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. That's one of the little tricks. Whatever you do as a prosecutor, they're gonna make whatever your witnesses do. It's always the wrong thing. It's either you focused too quickly or it took so long. Why did it take so long? Because they didn't know who it was.
That's called being innocent before you have to go and have the trial. Don't be trying to influence my jurors.
Any other issues you see in this case?
Don't influence my jurors.
That Brady stuff is really hard.
Pesky, I know.
Any other issues with this defendant, competency or anything that may raise
It may delay things. It'll delay things.
The fact that he has another pending murder charge, what about that? I mean, he has another pending second-degree murder for a road rage incident.
Yeah,
I mean, that's always
too.
interesting, right? Because these are going to be separately indicted, separately tried cases, separately negotiated. And so there's a way that the state can strategically pressure him to perhaps plead out to one, not go to trial on both, maybe give some information. But I think that that's always interesting when you're facing not just one murder charge, but two.
Yeah. Efficiency for the prosecution. If you can get them on one by using the leverage, that's when you stop and you go on and solve the
So
rest.
does that make it more likely that there could be some room to maneuver? Like, is it easier to convince a client to plead guilty to murder if they're facing
Well, he's
two
got
murders?
those gun charges, too. The gun charges would stack up. The gun charges in the United States, they kill you.
Yeah.
So he's facing probably
But
10.
murder's pretty serious, too.
No, but I'm telling you, murder here in Georgia is 25 to life and life in prison, these kinds of things. But the guns, when you stack them, they get just the same.
And they're all consecutive.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
As soon as they were second.
Well, I mean, I think what often happens in practice when you represent somebody who maybe is facing multiple murder charges is that or multiple charges, is you try one, and then if you're convicted, if you lose, what do you got left, right? So then kind of the dynamic changes.
Absolutely.
And which one gets tried first? The one that occurs first or the one where you're charged first?
Whatever the government wants.
Yeah, you can't take
That's
away
good.
the government's cheats.
Yeah, we don't have that
sorry,
power,
prerogatives.
sadly. We don't have that power.